Who's he talking to? Welcome back to part two with me, Jeff and Gary. So we were talking a bit like about Billy Kinsley. He was the in the band of the Mersey Beats.
Yeah,
right, yeah,
he was an original with the Mersey Beats, yeah. And he was, him and Tony Crane started the Mersey Beats, but then Billy had a second bite of the cherry when he formed his own band, Liverpool Express, you know. So I got to play with them when Kenny Parry was their guitarist and couldn't make it. I was the stand-in sort of thing with Billy Kinsley. I've got a little story about him as well, you know, because he's a great songwriter. But the last sort of big gig that we did, it was weird because I got a phone call and he said, "Can you make a gig on Friday at the Flora Pavilion Theatre?" So obviously I had a little pub gig as well, solo, that night. So I said, "Well, what time are we on?" He said, it's as Liverpool Express. He said, "We'd be on it about, 8:15, finished by 8:15. He said, then you can get off to your other gig, you know." So I'm thinking, oh, great, double bubble, you know.
Double bubble money,
double
yeah.
bubble, you know. So I got there, and I didn't realise it was with a weekend with Elvis's guitarist, James Burton.
Wow.
So you remember Elvis used to say, "Play it, James."
Play it, James.
You know. James would play that. So James Burton, one of my idols, because he's one of the biggest guitarists ever. So I said, it's with James Burton. He said, "No, we're not playing." He said, "We're just his guests, you know." So he said, and Susie Quattro's on the bill, and the Spinners were on. I remember the Spinners being on. And do you remember the lead guitarist from the Bay City Rollers, Eric Faulkner?
Eric Faulkner.
The blonde lad. Eric Faulkner.
The big blonde mullets, yeah.
He was on as well, but just doing it solo, you know. So I went to do the sound check, and it was great because Susie Quattro, you know, I was a big fan of hers when I was a kid, you know, same as yourself, you know.
Punky wonky, yeah, proper like, yeah.
I had a picture on my wall when I was a kid next to Blondie. Blondie was in a bin bag.
And Blondie, yeah.
All's Blondie had was a bin bag, and she still looked good. And you know, Susie Quattro next to her just with her bass, she was cool. So she walks in, and I'm like, wow, this is great, this, yeah, Susie Quattro. And I met her, and we had a good gab and everything. I was like, I was taking the mickey. I was saying,
yeah,
you know, "Wow, I've still got your picture and all. You know, I've got your picture."
Hey, baby.
And she was lovely,
yeah,
on the sound check. And then of course James Burton came in, and I'm sitting in the dressing room,
starstruck
with James Burton talking about Elvis, about the King, you know, and what he was like and all this. So that was one of the best gigs I did with Liverpool Express, with Billy Kinsley, you know, and it's always stuck in my mind. And I went and done the other gig. I should have stayed, but I went and done the other gig because I didn't want to let people down. Fair and I got me double bubble, but you know.
Fair play, yeah.
But I've met them all during the sound check, and it was a great gig.
So you had the weekend, or was it just the one night?
It was just the one night, yeah. But then I got to play with James Burton again at Perch Rock.
Okay.
As support through that gig, through talking to him, and he invited me to be his support, and he went on with his big band. They had the guy doing Elvis, doing the King, who was superb, brought him from London. This guy.
So that's amazing. So this obviously James Burton is just out of the whole wild world of guitarists. He just said, "No, I want Mr. Gary Murphy."
That was nice. Yeah. It was nice, yeah, to be invited to do it. So I got to meet him twice, and then the third time he came to the. I never went to that, but he actually played at the Cavern Club through all that.
Okay.
And he played at the Cavern Club and did a great show there in the back room there, you know, in the live lounge. And the Cavern Club's one of my, favourite venues. You know, actually, as you know, I still play there.
Still residents, yeah, since this lockdown.
And through Billy Kinsley,
yeah,
I got to know all the '60s lads. You know, all the others I've worked with, including Gerry Marsden.
Oh, bless you.
God bless Gerry.
Yeah.
As you know, Jeff, me and you, staunch Blue Noses, but when it comes to things like that, Gerry was a great guy.
Iconic, yeah. Did you play along with Gerry at one point? And did you
I played.
Jam with him, eh, Gerry?
I actually played as a member of his band. He used to do these things, golf shows, golf things for charity. His main one was what his daughter runs a vet called Whittle Holistic Care.
Okay.
And they do an amazing job. It's a big charity thing, and his other one, big charity, was Clare House. So he'd say to us, we've got a golf day, say up at Caldy or whatever it was, and he'd invite all the likes of the late and great Ian St John was always there.
Yeah.
He was another one. And then you get Stan Boardman turning up for the golf day, and I'd put the band together for the night time, you know. And it was a great story. Our band were playing with Gerry. The first time we ever did his first one. Do you remember the Lord Mayor of Whittle, John Cocker?
Okay.
Do you remember him? He was a great man, John Cocker. He was
not Joe Cocker, no, John Cocker.
No, not Joe Cocker, no. I had a little help from my friends.
Yeah.
It was John Cocker, and he was a Labour man. He was a Labour constituency sort of thing, and he said to me, we've got Gerry Marsden on the ferry boat for a Clare House, you know, charity.
Charity bash, yeah.
So I said, oh, that'd be great. I said, I know Gerry, you know. So Gerry comes on as the guest of honour, and he sits down, and I was set up with then in the band it was Stevie Pugh, the local lad from Wallasey, and a great drummer called Mike Bennett, two good lads. So it was only a trio, you know.
Okay.
And we're on the Royal Daffodil, you know, all set up.
Yeah.
And the mayor, John Cocker, comes in with his stuff, you know,
yeah.
the big medallion. Hi Gary, and what's the American accent, John? Yeah. Took it off, he went down. Mind you, he was very well spoken, John, he was very well educated, and he took it off and he go, hello Gary, how are you? So Gerry comes on and he said to me, can you get off and do a few with the lads? So I said, I'd be made up, you know, of course. So there we are, with Gerry Marsden on the ferry boat, she'd set sail. This wonderful ball is going on.
Nice day as well, yeah.
And Gerry's singing Ferry Cross the Mersey.
Ferry Cross the Mersey.
And I'm on the ferry with him, you know. And it was incredible. I'll never forget it. That was sort of the gig that always sticks in my mind with Gerry, and I've done loads for him. But,
you know, you're playing alongside him.
Yeah, and Gerry's going, life goes on day after day. And we're on the ferry boat, you know. Incredible. And then he done I Like It, and we were busking it really, because the other lads said, you know, we hadn't done I Like It and stuff like that, but it was great, you know. He was like doing it, you know. And everyone's up dancing, and it was just great, because he was a great fella, Gerry, and he had a wicked sense of humour.
Yeah.
And the very last time that Gerry played, which was just before lockdown. I think I told you about this gig. I had this crazy idea to do a big 60s show with all the lads who I'd worked with, including Ray Ennis from the Swinging Bluesines. He was the lead singer who done Hippie Hippie Shake, you know.
Hippie Shake.
Yeah, great. Yeah. Mike Penderoop from the Searchers, who was the one behind what was it? I saw her today. I saw her face. What a face I love, and I knew, all them, yeah.
Oh yeah.
I'm walking the room. I can feel your expression on my face. All stuff like that, you know. Mike Penner, the lead singer of these records from the Searchers, and I got him as well because I'd worked with Mike before, all through Gerry and Billy Kinsley. This was.
But they down to earth, did these
great lads. Brilliant, and of course Tony Crane from the Mersey Beats, who's still going, and Billy. So we got them all on the show with Gerry and many more great acts.
Okay.
Like Asa Murphy done a tribute to Buddy Holly that night. We had a wonderful girl doing Cilla Black, and we got the Undertakers back together. The great Brian Jones, you know, the saxophone Jones from the Undertakers. So we did this. I had this crazy idea. Let's put it all on the Philharmonic Hall, but with the Philharmonic Orchestra.
Wow. Yeah.
And this was just before the first lockdown. Anyway, it took me about 6 months to get the gig together. Got it all together, rehearsed it with my band. Got Paul Brooks, who was a great keyboard player, sort out the orchestral side of it. And we organised the whole thing, put it on, sold it out. And it turned out, little did we know, it was the 17th of February, this 2019, right?
Yeah.
Little did we know, 3 weeks later, or whatever it was, we were all going to be in lockdown.
Yeah.
So we just got the gig in. But it turns out that it was the very last time that Gerry Marsden played on stage live. And we've recorded it, we've got it all, but obviously we've not done nothing with it yet because it's only fair to the family, to Pauline, his wife and everything. But we've got Gerry's very, very last gig, and when he sang "You'll Never Walk Alone," which was obviously his last song, the whole place, 1,600 people singing "You'll Never Walk Alone," including, including, I've got to say this, a lot of the Evertonians in there knew that it was going to be Gerry's last swan song. It was very emotional, yeah. Because I mean, he was fine then. He was, he belted it out. His voice was brilliant, but he was a bit unsteady on his feet then. So he was starting to go down a little bit then. But I kept in touch with him after that. He did some recording for us at Glass Studios here on the Wirral. Yeah. So we done an album, a live album and everything of that. And he did some song that I wrote called "On Merseyside," which is perfect for him. It's like ferry across the Mersey, that sort of thing.
That sort of, yeah.
And I wrote that song, and he came down and sang it, and he loved it. So that might possibly be his next single. It's gone down to London. We'll see what happens with that in the future. But he was great, Gerry, and all the lads that night, all Cavern related, back to the Cavern Club again. Some of the stories they used to tell me about what they used to get up to in the Cavern, And Gerry said, sometimes he said, you'd have four bands on in one night. He said, and in them days, there was no sort of PA in there. He said, there was a couple of speakers that we used to all share. He said, but you'd be coming down the stairs with your drum kit, and another drum would be going up, like Pete Best would be going up for the Beatles. He said, and our drum would be coming. He said, pandemonium on the stairs. He said, and then just when you got to the bottom of the stairs, you couldn't see the stage for the smoke and the haze, and then you'd have to fight your way through to the stage to put your gear on. He said that was the hardest part. Obviously, the playing side of it, he said, was easy, but he said it was all good fun. They loved it.
It's all crammed, the Cavern, when you go in. It's very claustrophobic, isn't it?
And it was very, from what I can see, it was very competitive because at that time, Gerry and the Pacemakers were the Beatles' biggest rivals, and there was all kinds of things going on in Mersey Beat magazines. People were voting for Gerry, people were voting for the Beatles. It was always Gerry and the Beatles who were like that.
Close to close, yeah.
And what you've got to remember is Gerry had 3 straight number ones. In the early days.
Straight number ones, so you had Ferry Across the Mersey, Never Walk Alone.
Never Walk Alone, and the other one was I Like It. Yeah. 3 straight, and then there's other hits.
How do you do it?
Don't let the sun catch you crying. Yeah. Jose Feliciano covered that.
Okay.
So Gerry had a hit with it here.
Did he write that himself, Gerry?
It was one of Gerry's, yeah. Wow. And Gerry had a major hit with it here. I think it got to about number 3 or 4 in the UK. But Jose Feliciano released it on his album in the States, which went to number 1. So I remember Gerry saying, he said to me, we sat down with Paul and my wife, he said, and this royalty check come in. He said, and I'd already released it here. He said, I'd had a royalty check because I was the writer on it. He said, so I thought, well, I've had most of my money off that, that's done. He said, but it had been released in the States, and Jose's album went to number 1. He said, so my song's on it. He said, it was a bigger check than I got from the UK. He said, and I said, I'm taking you out tonight, darling. He said, look at that. He said, I didn't even know who Jose Feliciano was at the time. He said, and then when we met, he said, he was a lovely man. He said, and he was blind. He said, so I had a watch made, sent it to him in Braille, a Braille watch.
Wow, yeah.
A nice watch. Gerry said to thank him for doing my song.
And that was The Sun Catch Me Crying, yeah?
Don't let the sun catch you crying.
Don't let the sun catch you crying.
If you listen to the version that Jose Feliciano does, it's really good.
I think it was a little verse, like classically,
Yeah, well, it's all like, don't let the sun catch you crying. He's doing it. You know, all that going on. It's really good, you know. So I was very privileged to have met Gerry Marsden in many ways, and I actually went to his funeral. There was only 28 of us allowed, including the 2 priests who done the service, and it was weird because obviously because of the lockdown. Had it been normal times, the streets would have been full.
Well, the cathedral,
and probably would have been at the cathedral. Yeah. But it was at a little chapel in Easton.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you know as you go to Wales, where you can go straight onto Easton, or you can go to the Welsh Road. There's a little chapel behind there. I think it's called St Mary's of the Angels. I think it is. And we went there. Me and my wife Nikki. We were invited by Pauline, and I had to play Ferry Cross the Mersey at the end when for Gerry. You know, at the end when we take them out of the air.
How did you cope with that? Because obviously, you know, your emotions.
Well, I was very close to him.
Yeah.
It really was. So it was hard because it would have been easier to do it in front of a big cathedral and thousands of people paying homage to him. Yeah. But to just do it in his family and his very close relatives and his little grandson and everything, and his lovely daughters. He's got 2 lovely daughters, and his wife Pauline has been with him since, I would say, since 65. 65 they got married. Yeah. So childhood, sort of lifetime they've been together. And she was great. She was a rock for the girls and everybody, and it was very emotional. Kenny Dalglish was there. Yeah. And the mayor, Redmond, Steve Redmond.
Do you know, if it was normal, you can imagine it would have been, you know, a grand old day with obviously the respect of all everybody, because you know he did put Liverpool on the map. You know, that sort of, you know, that song, and also the football club as well. But you know, his songs across the states, as he just said.
He did an awful lot, you know, Jeff, for as I mentioned, charity, which he kept quiet. You know, he didn't really boast about that. Gerry, he was, you know, but he was a very simple man. Obviously, he was very, very well off because of he'd been a star and toured since he was 17, 18. And he was one of the hardest working people around. He'd do 5-6 nights a week, you know, when he was able to do it. Yeah. And he was still touring up until about 2-3 years ago, and then he decided to just say that's it. You know, I can't do it health-wise, only because he had heart problems, basically. And otherwise he'd have carried on.
Still going, like Cy Tucker, another
Cy
Cavern
Tucker
with Cy.
Well, he was another one because he'd been around that era, the same. One of our local unsung heroes, really, Cy. He'd been, but we lost him with COVID, didn't we? Yeah. Gerry's wasn't COVID related. Gerry's was a blood disorder that infected the heart. Really, it was an infection that went to his heart. It wasn't COVID related. But there was a nice story which Yvette told me his daughter, one of his daughters. She said to me, Christmas Day, she said, my dad got let out of hospital for Christmas Day. She said, and it was great because he just had a little granddaughter last year. And she said then he was made up because the whole family were at the house, you know. So Christmas Day, just gone. He was with all his family, and the doctor said he must come back in on the Boxing Day, but we're letting him home for Christmas Day, you know. But he had a great day. She said he was bright, he was breezy, you know, and he was really funny, you know. He's all the way through, Gerry. He had a great wicked sense of humour.
Never shows his pain because obviously he was suffering, you know, with the pain.
He was a bit of a boxer as well, you know, years ago, Gerry. He liked boxing in a big way, you know, and he used to do a bit of boxing with, remember Alan Rudkin?
Okay, yeah.
They were good mates.
Alan Rudkin from the South End and stuff,
Yeah, they sort of grew up together, and Gerry used to...
That's the people getting on the stage, you know, you go into the Cavern and people are jumping on trying to act the
Gerry knocking them all out the way.
Get off the stage.
He had great stories about Paul and John.
Yeah.
And George and Ringo, you know, and well, it was in them days, it was Pete Best, obviously. I met Pete Best.
I mean, Pete Best, this is the the fifth Beatle who was the drummer, and then
Yeah.
Ringo got him, you know.
Yeah, I did a gig. He's got a place called the Casbah,
Yeah.
which is a bit like a Beatles museum now. And it belonged to his mother, I think, the building. And the Beatles used to practice there when they were kids, before the Cavern, you know. So what they've done is turned it into basically a Beatles museum now. And Billy Kinsley again asked me to play with him as Liverpool Express.
You played with Pete Best, the drummer.
Yeah, he was there, and he was jamming with us and at the end. And it was great because, you know, I'm sitting there speaking, I've got photographs taken with him, and he signed his book for me, gave me a copy of his book. And I thought, what a lovely man he is, because for who he is, you know, he was a Beatle. He was a Beatle, yeah. And you wouldn't think so. He's just one of the most down-to-earth guys, you know.
Gary, your guitar's out of tune, and you're just like normal talk and chatting to it, you know, that's...
And he was great as well, great drumming as well. And he got up at the end, and he's playing in his own place. But also remember then, it was well before, this was about 4 or 5 years ago now. There was no lockdown and anything, so it was crammed, the whole place was crammed. And I remember playing lead guitar, Billy Kinsley's there, and his bass, there was nowhere to move. Yeah. His bass was like digging me here in the back, because he couldn't move anywhere. The poor drummer Adam was stuck in the corner like this, playing like this. And we had Dave Goldberg on keyboards with us, who was the keyboard player out of Rumours, you know, the Fleetwood Mac tribute band. Yeah. And Adam's his son on drums. He plays with us, but so Dave's got this keyboard like on an angle to try and get it in. You know, he's playing like that, you know. Billy Kinsley digging me in the back, I can't move. And there's this German lady, right, because there was people coming from all over the world, and she was stood in front of me, and I couldn't move, she couldn't move. She couldn't move. The people were just literally in front of you. Yeah. Right, and I just sang to this German lady, and I couldn't sing to anybody else. And after each song we were doing, you know, like Liverpool Express songs and Merseybeat songs. We did Sorrow and stuff like that. Okay. And after each song she'd just go, oh, yeah. How are you? I just went, yeah. I couldn't speak a word of English, but it was a gig that I'll never forget. Yeah, Pete Best, top man. Yeah.
You're just dropping names, Gary. But I mean, this is the way where you started off with going back, you know, as a kid. Yeah. And look where it's got you. You know, it's.
Yeah, there's loads more I've done, but I've been here for months. But I suppose because I started young enough, I got a good grounded experience working, you know. Yeah. In the
I'm going to do a blues jam for you. Put you on the spot.
That'd be good.